started looking at the notion of triple integral. Just revise that. So f is a function defined on a, say, cuboid AB cross CD cross EF. The triple integral we defined by partitioning and saying that you can do similar things, like for two variables, partition the domain into smaller cuboids, take a value at a point, multiply it with the volume, sum it up and take the limits as the partition becomes finer and finer. So that was the notion of triple integral for a function over a paralleloparallel or a cuboid, and we can extend it to any domain which is bounded as we did for two variables. So we will not spend much time on these things, but the point, how do you compute this? I stated Frobenius theorem, which says that supposing your domain D is such that it can be represented as points in R3, such that xy belong to R2, that is a projection of the domain onto the xy plane, and for any point xy in that projection, the z coordinate varies from a function g xy to hxy. So it is kind of a region where the top is bounded by two surfaces and the bottom is the base of that lies in the region R. So when one can write, Frobenius theorem says, then the triple integral can be written as the double integral over the region R, which is a projection onto the xy plane, and integrate this function as a function of one variable z between gxy and hxy. So that gives you a function of two variables x and y. Integrate that over the region R. So in a picture, the region will look like this. So this is the region D over which you are integrating, and you will project, you get the region R in the xy plane, and for any point in this here, when you go up, you vary from this surface to this surface. So that is z varies from hxy to gxy. Let us look at some a particular case of that. For the projection in R, the projection R of the domain onto the xy plane, that itself can be a region of type 1 or type 2. Then you can simplify further your triple integral. Supposing that the projection is a region of type 1, where x and y in R2, so that x between a and b, and y between phi 1 x and phi 2 of x, where phi 1, phi 2 are continuous functions of the variable x, then you can write your triple integral as, this was the double integral, this portion corresponds to the double integral over R, and that I can write using our knowledge about double integrals by Frobenius theorem for two variables, that the integral over R can be written as integral of the function with one variable at a time. So x goes from a to b, y goes from phi 1 x to phi 2 of x, of that integrated thing with respect to z, right? So all are integrals of functions of one variable, provided your domain has some certain properties. Or it could be that the domain R is of region of type 2, where y is given by some c to d, and the x goes from psi 1 y to psi 2 y, then the corresponding thing you will look at. So this is what is called the iterated triple integral. You are calculating the triple integral by iterating one variable at a time. So for a function of one variable, or for a function of two variables, you will get only two iterated integrals. You can either integrate x or y, and here for a function of three variables, you can get many more. So for example, here we have just said that the domain is projectable onto the xy plane, then you get two iterated integrals of three variables, right? Supposing your domain is also projectable onto the yz plane. If it is projectable onto the yz plane, then which will be the coordinate you will be integrating first? Outside the region will be R, which is in the yz plane, and you will be integrating with respect to the variable x. So you will get again two iterated integrals in that case. And similarly, if it is projectable onto the xz plane, you get two iterated integrals corresponding to that triple integral. So depending upon, I make that mistake which I tell students not to do. Okay, I'm sorry. So let us proceed. So for a function of 3 variables, the triple integral can be represented in 6 iterated integrals, depending on which variable you integrate first, which is the next and which is the next one. So all depends upon whether your domain is projectable onto the xy plane, or it is projectable onto the yz plane, or it is projectable onto the xz plane, right? So we'll look at some examples to illustrate these points. So all these are called iterated integrals, and such regions are called elementary regions in R3. So let us look at an example to illustrate what we are doing. So we want to compute this integral. Here the integrand is the function. When you don't write anything, that means you are integrating the function, constant function 1. Okay? Sometimes you write, sometimes you don't write, doesn't matter. So whether you write triple integral over d, 1 dv, this dv, d capital V indicates with respect to the 3 variables, integration with respect to 3 variables. Where d is a solid bounded by the ellipsoid. So we are given the ellipsoid, right? The solid ellipsoid given by this equation. Okay? So it's bounded by, this is a surface, so the region inside this surface, this is the ellipsoid. Okay? So we want to find out what is the volume of, what is the integral of this 1 dv where d is given by this. By the way, I use already the word volume because once you integrate the function, constant function 1, what will the triple integral represent? If you look at that idea of summation, when you are dividing each your domain into smaller regions and multiplying the value of the function is 1. So essentially you will be multiplying by smaller regions, volume of smaller regions, and adding up. So triple integral of the constant function 1 will represent the volume of that solid, okay, geometrically. We'll come to that again. So let me just, so this domain D, which is, so if you want to project it, this is projectable onto all the 3 planes. You can project that ellipsoid onto the xy plane or yz plane or xz plane. So here we are projecting onto the xy plane. So xy belong to R. Let us project it onto the xy plane. There is a projection R. So where does z vary? Z will vary from the lower part of the ellipsoid to the upper part of the ellipsoid. So z goes from minus 2 square root to plus 2 square root 4 minus x square minus y square. And once, now the problem is to compute the triple integral, I have to write down R as a elementary domain of type 1 or type 2. So let us see what is the projection of an ellipsoid onto the xy plane. So what was our ellipsoid? What will be the projection of this onto the xy plane? Z is equal to 0. So 4x square plus 4y square equal to 16. So that is a circle, right? The disk, the region bounded by the circle. So that is the disk. Xy says that 4x square plus 4y square less than or equal to 16. And that I can write as type 1 elementary domain or type 2 elementary domain in xy plane, right? Whether I want to integrate x first or y first. So this is the ellipsoid, and this is the projection onto the xy plane, which is shown here as the disk, right? So this is how you will visualize these things. So the z variable goes from this part to this part, right? For any point in the projection, if you want to see how much the z varies, you move perpendicular to the xz plane where you are taking the projection and see when you enter and when you leave the domain, right? So you will enter here the lower part, so that is this surface, and upper part, that is the surface. So, and for this one you can take, right, x going between minus 2 to 2 and y going from the top to the bottom, right? Or you can also write y going from minus 2 to 2 and then you will be going from here to here. So write your domain, take the appropriate projection onto the xy plane, yz plane or xz plane, whichever you think is convenient, and then you describe that projection in terms of those 2 coordinates, right, x and y, yz or zx, and write down your integrals. For that x between this, y goes from 4 minus x square to 4 minus x square plus square root, right? So that is phi 1 x, phi 2 of x. And for these x and y, z goes from a function of x and y, which is minus 2 square root 4 minus x square minus y square to less than or equal to 2 times. So is it clear to everybody what is the process of doing it? So visualize the domain right? You have to try to write it one variable at a time, right? So either try to project it onto one of the planes and see what is the region R, that is the projection. That is a two variable thing. You can write down as elementary domain of type 1 or type 2 and integrate the other variable, that is the third variable. Okay. So once you want to write the integral, so integral 1 dv will be equal to x from -2 to +2, right? That is the last variable to be integrated. Then y goes from 4 minus x square to 4 plus square root 4 minus x square root plus. So that is the second one. And the last one inside thing is z going. So this is the first one to be integrated. The innermost is the first one to be integrated. Then you integrate it, then you integrate that. Right? So one way of analyzing, as I said, domain is to project it onto one of the planes. Or if you don't like that, you can also try to go from inside. Take a point, small portion inside, small cuboid, small parallelogram inside the domain, and try to expand it. Right? Try to enlarge it and say you are going parallel to the z-axis. See how much you can enlarge it parallel to z-axis. So that is your starting here. So you are taking a small thing and enlarging dz. So it will go from here to here. You have enlarged axiom. And then you try to enlarge it corresponding to other variables. So that is one other way of visualizing these limits. So whichever you find convenient, you can do it. So either project it or try to enlarge going from inside. For that, okay? But what we are looking at that part of the cylinder which is at the bottom, x is equal to 0. Sorry, on the first octant, bottom is of course on the xy plane, x is equal to 0. What is that plane? That is a yz plane, so that is the back plane, okay? This yz plane. And the plane which is y equal to x, so that is a y equal to x plane. At the back, the yellow one at the back side is the, right? That is the plane which is x is equal to 0. So you can visualize this. Now, if you want to project it, when you project it onto the xy plane, what will be the projection? So project it onto the xy plane, so the projection will be this triangle onto the xy plane. So for any point in that projected thing R, I will move up to that curved surface, right? So Z will go from Z is equal to 0 in the xy plane up to the curved portion of the cylinder, that is y square plus z square equal to 1. So I can compute Z from there. So that will be equal to 1 minus y square root, because you are only in the first octant, so positive sign only, right? And once you know the triangle, this is the triangle in the xy plane, you can write down as an elementary domain of type 1 or type 2. So you can either integrate from here to here, y goes from something to something, and then x goes from this limit to this limit, or you can treat it as x goes from here to here, okay? And for any x, it starts here and goes up to top line only. So it starts with y equal to x up to the top line, which is y equal to 1. So you can represent that triangle either as an elementary domain of type 1 or elementary domain of type 2. Choice is yours. But always it may not be possible that you are able to represent each domain in R in the xy plane as elementary of type 1 and type 2. It may be only one possible sometimes. Then you are forced to go according to that. So is that clear now? This domain is clear. So this is the wedge which we want to integrate over, and its projection onto the xy plane is this triangle. For any point in this triangle, if I go up, I will be going from this point to the top of the surface, right, which is the curved part of the surface. So that is how z varies, x and y vary in this triangle. So let us write down the appropriate integral. So domain is x, y, z, xy belong to R, z goes from 0 to 1 minus y square root, that is a part of the cylinder. Now for the triangle, I can write it as either x going from 0 to 1, and then y goes from the line, right, the y equal to x up to the top y equal to 1, right. Once that is done, or I can write it other way around also. As I said, you go y between 0 and 1, then x goes from 0 to the line y equal to x, right, the horizontal line, and that is x is equal to y. So that is a line. So we can now write down the triple integral. So it is equal to integral over R. I have taken the projection onto the xy plane. Okay. For example, in this there is no point of taking the projection onto the yz plane or xz plane, because they will get slightly messy. So always see your domain where you want to project, where it will give you nice, right, domains to analyze and write. So you can integrate now over R. R you can write as again function of two variables and integrate out. The answer comes out to be. So the main problem, again and again I am saying it, is how do you project your domain onto an appropriate plane and write. So as I said earlier, the notion of double integral or a triple integral, supposing you have a double integral over a domain and you are integrating the constant function 1. So what will the answer be? If you are taking a function of two variables and integrating over a domain D in the xy plane, and you are integrating the constant function 1, that means in that summations, when you subdivide your domain D into smaller rectangles, the function is 1. So only you will be getting sigma di or sigma of ai, the areas of those small portions. So in effect you will be computing what is the area of that domain. That is not computing the area, that is actually the definition of what should be called as the area of a region, bounded region in plane. Suppose you are given a bounded region in the plane and you want to define its area. So the area is defined to be the double integral of the constant function 1, because intuitively that matches with our definition of double integral. Is it clear? One should be very clear what you are defining and what you are assuming. So this notion of double integral for a function of one variable, right, integral 1 dxy, if this integral exists, will give you what should be called as the area of the domain D in xy plane. So that is the definition of the area for a, right, from a general rectangle you have gone to a domain for which this function is, constant function is integrable. Okay. So that is the area, and similarly for a region in R3, okay. Supposing you have still a region in R3 where the bottom is again same thing, bottom is in the domain dx, D in the xy plane, but the height goes from the xy plane up to some surface fxy. Then still you are integrating only function of two variable, and that will give you the volume of that solid whose base is in the xy plane, base is D and the height is by the surface, top is bounded by the surface fxy. You can visualize this also as a function of three variable integration, right? Z integrated from 0 to fxy1. Okay, so they both match. So there is no problem of consistency. So let us do some more examples so that these ideas. So let us compute. You are given the sin x curve, you are given the cos x curve, and we want to find out the area trapped between the two. We have done it as a function of one variable also, right? And the same formula should apply here also. There shouldn't be any two different formulas, right? So let us see whether we get the same formula or not. So for a function of one variable, if the top is gx and the bottom is fx, x goes from a to b, what is the area trapped between the two curves? It is the integral x a to b of gx minus fx dx. Same we will get if we use this formula now. Let us see. Okay. So this is what we want to integrate. So this domain I can write as type 1 or type 2, whichever I like. So here it is easier if I write it as type 1, because it is given x goes from pi by 4 to pi by 4 and g goes from this curve, and right, y coordinate goes from this to this. So I can write it as a elementary domain of type 1 and apply my 2 variable formula and compute. Okay, so this is how I have written y goes from phi 1x to phi 2 of x. So that is, and which is same as phi 2x minus phi 1x. It is the same formula, right? It is the same formula as of one variable. There is no change actually. Okay, so that you can integrate. So let us write one or two more examples so that find the volume of the cylinder this bounded by z is equal to 0 and z is equal to 4 minus y. So cylinder is x square plus y square less than or equal to 4. So what is the cylinder? Where is the axis? Z axis is a vertical cylinder. At the bottom z is equal to 0, bounded below by xy plane, and at the top it is bounded by the other plane, z is equal to 4 minus y. So this is the volume we want to find. Now you can easily write down what will be the domain D. Domain D, its projection onto the xy plane is this disk, and z goes from, so this is my R, projection onto the xy plane. At any point I start from z is equal to 0 and go up to z is equal to 4 minus y. So it's clear, right? For the disk you can write down elementary domain type 1, type 2, whichever you like, then compute. So x square plus y square less than or equal to 4, that is, and the top is, so the required volume is given by, right, fxy over the region R. Is it clear? This is either double integral or triple, doesn't matter, because the bottom surface is z is equal to 0, top is z is equal to 4 minus y, so integral 1 dz, so it will be giving you this 4 minus y only. So whichever way you write it as double integral or a triple integral, formula is same answer is obtained. Okay, so basically various variations of the same thing. Let us find the volume of the region D enclosed between the two surfaces x square plus 3y square and z is equal to 8 minus x square minus y square. This is something similar to, it's a extension of that one variable thing, one parabola up, one parabola down, and the area trapped between the two. Here I have taken a function of two variables, right? So the surface at the top, a cup kind of thing, inverted, and up at the bottom, and the area, the volume, so solid enclosed by these two paraboloids. Okay? So what will be? To find out this volume, either I want to project it onto some plane, right? Because it is, z is given as a function of two variables in both of them, so I should try to project it onto the xy plane, right? So when you want to project it onto the xy plane means what? You want to eliminate the z coordinate from these two surfaces. So eliminate z, and then you get x square plus 2y square is equal to 4, right? So that is the curve that you are getting, right? So that is the cylinder, the intersection lies on the cylinder, which is x square plus 2y square equal to, it is not a circular cylinder, it is a, what one calls as elliptic cylinder, because the base is not a circle, it is a ellipse. So such things are called elliptic cylinders. So this is the base, so you know the base xy, so you get x square plus 2y square less than or equal to 4, that is the base, and the height from one of the paraboloids to the other paraboloid, that is the height z, right? So let us write down, so d can be written as x, y, z. For this thing, x, you first fix x between minus 2 and 2. Once you have done that, you calculate y from this equation. Y goes from minus square root to plus square root, right? X square of 4 minus x square on that side, and then you calculate z, it goes from, now you have to see which one is the lower one, which is the upper one. So once you have figured out that, so it goes from 3x square plus y square less than or equal to 8 minus x square minus y square, right? So that is how you will convert your domain D in R2 or R3 into computable domains. Computable means you write it as domain type 1 or type 2. So your volume looks like, right? X goes from minus root to 2, y goes from minus square root to, from the ellipse, these two coming from the ellipse, and the third one coming from the two paraboloids, the bottom and the top. So now we have got function of one variable to be integrated 3 times. So you do it and you compute. So computation, I am not going through the computations because, okay, that is the, okay. Right, somebody yawning, but I would suggest that you don't yawn that loudly that you disturb others. Okay, I can hear it here. If you are feeling too sleepy, there is no attendance, you can go home. Go to the hostel and lie down and sleep nicely there, right? Because don't treat coming to the maths class or coming to any class like there is a katha vachan going on and somebody is giving gyan. Even if you are sleeping, something will go in your ear and your next janma will be better. Don't treat this way. If I come to class, be attentive, okay? Otherwise, no attendance is being taken. You can just go and sleep. Why do you come here? I don't understand, right? So if you come to class, be attentive, try to understand, try to listen, okay? If you want, then we'll start taking attendance. There's no problem. It will mess up the whole thing anyway. But we'll start taking. So I thought you are responsible persons. If you are taking the responsibility that you don't want to come to class and you can learn of your own, fine. Don't mind that. But don't complain later on. But if you come to class, then please don't disturb others. Okay? Right. So let us go on. So a function of 2 variables or 3 variables. Let us give some applications of this. One application I have already given, that you can write double integral. When you integrate the constant function 1, the double integral gives you the area of that region, bounded region, and when it is the triple integral, it gives you the volume of that region. So let me not say much about those things again. So volume, and you can write down those things, okay? So the same as given earlier and so on. So this is what we have gotten for 2 variables also, if you treat it as a function of 2 variables. So I think let us not probably, let me just outline that. So something similar, z is equal to 5x square plus 5y square, and z is equal to 6 minus 7x square y square. Again 2 paraboloids are there, you will find the intersection of them, okay? So that intersection comes out to be 2x square plus y square, again an elliptic cylinder. Probably, let me just show you a picture of this because I have it one. So the projection, that is a cylinder, so that is what you are going to project onto the xy plane, right? So this is one surface, other one is the yellow one, and they are intersecting in this portion, right? And that intersection, is represented, that is an ellipse in the xy plane, is an elliptic cylinder. When you project it onto the xy plane, it gives you an elliptic cylinder. And now you can write down x between something and y going from the top curve to the bottom curve. And z goes from, right, the bottom of, the z goes from the bottom of this, for any point, it goes from here, the green one to the yellow one, the curved surface on the yellow one, okay? So a similar example, okay. So when you write it, the projection is xy in R2, x within 1 minus 1 square root 2 plus square root 2, coming from the ellipse, y goes from here to here, minus square root to plus square root, and z goes from one surface to the other, okay? Right. So in these things, this is the most crucial one, how to write your integrals as iterated integrals, which we can compute. There are some physical applications of this multiple integrals. One, of course, volume and area we have already said. Like in function of one variable, we defined what is called the average of a function of one variable. If a function is integrable on an interval AB, then we said its average, we can define it as integral of the function on the interval AB divided by the length of the interval, right? The values to be added up divided by the number of values, essentially that is the idea we are taking, right? Here the number doesn't make sense, is the length of that interval. Same thing you can carry over, same idea you can carry over in R2 or R3. Supposing you have a domain in R2 and a function is integrable over that domain in R2, you want to define its notion of average over that domain. Supposing the function is integrable over that domain, so you can take the double integral, that is the total of the values divided by, now you should be putting as the area, but the area is the double integral of that function again, right? So integrate the function f double integral over d divided by the integral of the constant function 1 over d. That gives you the average of the function for function of 2 variables and similarly for 3 variables. So let me just, so this is for a function of 2 variables and similarly for a function of 3 variables. You can define the triple integral of the function that gives the total of the values essentially and over which how many values you are taking, that is the area of, or that is the volume of that region, right? So this is how one generalizes things in mathematics. You have done it for one variable. Look at the basic concept. The basic concept is total divided by the total number. Appropriately interpret those things in one variable, two variable, or three variables and carry over. Then there are physical quantities like mass. You got a planar sheet of some metal, right? You want to find its total mass, and for mass, if you know the area and if you know the density, you know the mass. Essentially, that is the idea. So, density of that planar object at a point xy in that domain, let us say it is a function of the point xy. So, let's say rho xy is the density at the point xy in the domain. If you take a small portion of that, you can assume the density remains constant and multiply by the small area dA. So, fxy into dA will be the mass of that small portion. If you want total, you should integrate with respect to the two variables. So, taking Q from that, for a domain D in the plane, if rho xy is the density at a point xy, and if this function density is integrable, of course mathematically we have to put those conditions, then the mass of that planar object can be defined as integral over D rho xy dx dy. Right? Intuitively very clear why we are putting this as the definition of the mass. Rho xy, that is the density. For a small portion, you can think it dxy. So that is the volume, that is the mass of the small portion, and total you want, so integrate it out. Right? Now you can carry over these things. For example, for a planar body, you would like to find out what is the center of mass, center of gravity of a planar object. What is the definition of, physical definition of center of gravity? Given a planar object, you say a point x bar, y bar is the center of gravity, provided the whole mass can be assumed to be at that point, right? But if the whole mass is there, you can compute that moment of that mass with respect to x-axis and y-axis, right? So what will be the, if the center of gravity is at the point x bar, y bar, then what is the distance of that point from the y-axis? That is y bar. So you are looking at the moment around x-axis. So what is the moment around the x-axis? The total mass multiplied by y bar should be equal to the moment, total moment of the body. But what should be the total moment of the body? You can take a small portion of it, right, and calculate the moment and try to calculate the moment of the total, right? When you take a small portion, so what will be the moment of that small portion? Say dA, its distance from that x-axis, that is y. So y into dA, integrate it out, double integral, that gives the moment of the body around x-axis. Center of gravity gives you another way of representing the moment. The two should be equal. And what does that mean? That means x bar is equal to the double integral of y dxy divided by the total mass, right? So that gives you the formula. I have just written the formula straight away. So that gives you the x coordinate for the center of gravity. Is it clear from where does it come? It comes from physical considerations. If this is the center of mass, if you multiply on the other side, what is the left hand side? This is the total mass. Where it is concentrated is x bar, that gives the moment around the axis, right? Around the y-axis. And this is the moment around the y-axis if you take small part of the body. So the two must be equal. So that gives you, this should be the definition of, so one defines, this is the definition of the x coordinate of center of gravity of a planar object. And similarly y coordinate you can calculate to be that. Same idea you can carry over for 3 dimensions, right? There instead of calculating moments around axis, we will be calculating moments around the planes, 3 different planes. So same idea is carried over. So that gives you center of mass for a planar body, and for a 3-dimension solid, mass can be written as that is the density, and center of gravity, center of mass, you can define to be equal to triple integrals. If you are calculating x coordinate, right, then you have to take it from the yz plane, right? So that is x times this. So keep that. I think you must be doing this in physics probably already, or it may come to you in physics courses if you have not done it already. You can carry over these things. For example, now you can ask what is moments of inertia and so on, or a planar body around an axis of a solid around xy plane and so on. So I will not do all those things here because they will be done in physics probably anyway. So you can also, using double integrals and triple integrals, define what are called moments of inertia of a body in plane or a solid in 3 dimensions. So those things will not do. Let us come to slightly more mathematical part of it. In one variable, there is a very good technique of computing integrals that is called integration by substitution. Right? You do it very often. A similar formula exists for functions of 2 variables and 3 variables, and that is very useful. So let us look at that formula. So for a function of one variable, essentially the idea is that if you want to call g of t as a new variable, right, u, then f of u prime, right? So derivative is sitting, you can call g of t as a new variable u, and you can integrate out changing the appropriate limits. Right? That is one variable change of variable formula. Yes? The same thing we want to do. So what will happen is, for a function f, is in a plane, the domain will be double integral over some domain d. Function, what is the meaning of f of gt? You are computing f in the terms of a new variable. Right? G of t you are going to call as u in the terms of a new variable. And then you multiply, instead of du, you have got g prime t dt. Something has to be multiplied with the integration with respect to the new variables. So the variables x, y are going to be changed to new variables u comma v. So you are going to get a transformation from plane to plane, which changes the variables x, y to the variables u, v. Right? And accordingly there will be a formula which relates the two things. So what is that thing that which is sort of similar to g prime t into a variable that works? We'll describe that. So let us describe, that is called the Jacobian of a transformation. So let us look at it. Omega is in R2, an open set, and G is a map from open set in R2 to R2. So this is the transformation which is going to change your variable uv to xy. And it's a function of 2 variables. So it's a function defined on uv and the image is xy. So uv goes to xy. Okay? So because it is a point in R2, so it must be 2 components. So this is the first component g1 of uv. The first component will depend upon uv, right? Clear to everybody? And second component, probably I should define, draw a picture here. So here is something. Here is the omega. Here is R2. So a point here is going here. So u comma v goes to a point here which is x comma y. So this is u, this is v, and this is x, and that is y. So this is my xy. Okay? So a point G takes a point uv and transforms to a point xy. Is a transformation. Okay? So what do we want? So we want to define. So we have 2 components. These are called component functions for a function of 2 variables. So the value also is again from anywhere. If the function taking values in R2, then it's going to get 2 components, right? Each component is a function of the point from where you are starting. So G1 and G2 are component functions, and we have got conditions on that. So they are functions of 2 variables. Partial derivatives of both these things exist in omega. That is a domain over which the function is G is defined. So first condition, partial derivatives of both the component functions exist, right? And then we define at a point, because these partial derivatives are also going to be defined at a point, right? So they depend on a point. So compute the determinant of this quantity, 2 by 2 matrix, partial derivative of G1 at P, partial derivative of G1 at P, this is with respect to the first variable U, this is with respect to the second variable U. Similarly, the second component with respect to U, second component with respect to V. Right? So we are looking at only for partial derivatives of the component functions. There are 2 component functions, each a function of 2 variables, so that gives you 4 partial derivatives. First component function uv, second component function uv, calculate the determinant of that. That depends on the point P, the value at the point P. So this is a number called Jacobian of the function G at the point P. Okay. Now let us state the theorem. What does the theorem say? The theorem says, so G is a transformation and we assume that it is 1, 1, right? When you want to change the variable, you don't want everything goes to say 1 point only. Then it will not give you anything new, right? Because you want to calculate the volume or the area. So the function g should be 1, 1 function with the properties. This function g from omega to R2 should be a 1, 1 function with the following properties. First of all, g1 and g2 have continuous partial derivatives. These derivatives not only they exist, they are continuous also. So this Jacobian will be a continuous function. If all the partial derivatives are continuous, then Jacobian at a point P, right, as P varies will give you a continuous function. Okay, so it is continuous and it should not vanish at any point. The Jacobian, which is a function of the point P, P is varying in the domain, should not vanish at any point. Okay, then for any function of two variables defined in a domain D, if it is says continuous, I want to integrate this quantity fxy over d. Keep in one variable in mind, fxy dxy over a to b. In the new variables, f of g1 uv, g2 uv, the new variables, f evaluated in terms of the new variables, f composite g at t, right? One variable thing. So f evaluated with respect to new variables, instead of g prime, now absolute value of the Jacobian is entering into picture. Absolute value of the Jacobian du dv. So you can say essentially dxy is equal to Jacobian times duv. That is the change that is coming. Like you have got dx in one variable, dx is equal to g prime u du. Right? That is essentially how you remember that. So same way, dxy for a function of two variables, change of variable, the formula says, if all the appropriate conditions are satisfied, then it is Jacobian of the transformation, which is computable from G, the components G1 and G2, by looking at the 2 by 2 du dv. So a two variable is transformed to another two variables, right? What is the use of such kind of, so here, there you change from AB and there goes to CD, right? The limits change. So here the limits are this domain D, right? And E are related, G of E is equal to D. So here integral is over E, here is integral over D. The variable, this thing is called x comma y. So dx dy is that thing, dx dy, change of variable. Is that formula clear to everybody? I have tried to give you similarity between one variable, right? Integrating a function over a domain D, you want to change the variable. So change the variables, but you have to multiply with Jacobian times du dv. That is the change. Appropriate conditions, the partial derivatives must exist. They must be continuous. Jacobian should not vanish, right? And the function g should be 1, 1. Those are the three conditions. Probably so this is the picture I had in mind, wanted to draw. So this is the domain omega. So this is the domain omega, right, the green one, and this is E, and this E is going into D, and you have got a function from here. So integrating a function f over D, right, this is over the variables x and y, you want to transform and to a new variable u and v. So you can do that. That means this should take g of E should be equal to D, so you will be integrating the composite function. So this composite function is f evaluated at g1 uv comma g2 uv, that is a composite function like in one variable, right, f of gt. So there is a composite function you will evaluate on the set E, which is so that g of E is equal to D. Only thing is you have to multiply that dx dy, you have to replace it by Jacobian times du dv. So that is a formula. So let us probably, so you can think, so what is essentially doing, Jacobian is essentially kind of a magnifying factor, dxy, right, dA in term of xy goes to Jacobian times duv. So it's kind of a magnification, that is the magnification you are getting, right, change of variable gives you that much of magnification. Okay, and normally you don't do variable just for the sake of it, you do it because your integral becomes easy to compute. So same philosophy should be kept in mind for making change of variables in 2 or 3 variables, that when you transform, either your integrand becomes easy to compute integrals are easy to compute, or your domain becomes nice to compute. Then only you do such kind of things. So probably this extends to 3 variables and unions and so on, that we'll see it later. Let me look at one example to illustrate. So let us find out the area of the region D in the xy plane bounded by these lines. There are 4 lines given, x plus y equal to 1, that is x plus y equal to 4. So these are 2 parallel lines, x minus y equal to 0, x minus y equal to minus 4. So it is a parallelogram that is given to you. You'll say, why do I have to use double integrals or anything to compute the area? But this example is just to illustrate the change of variable, how it makes life easier. So this is what we want to compute. So the idea is, if I write x plus y as a new variable, then it becomes u equal to 1. Right? And I write y minus x minus y equal to a new variable v, then it becomes v equal to 0. So lines become straight, which were in xy, in uv plane that will become the boundaries of that parallelogram will become straight, right? X-axis, u-axis and v-axis. So this itself says that let me make a change of variable, namely u equal to x plus y and v equal to x minus y. So what is my function g being, so uv goes to, so I have to compute. So what is guv goes to xy, right? So what is the function? What is x is equal to? From here I have to compute x, I have to compute y. That gives me x in terms of u and v. So x is equal to 2uv, right? Solve these equations. So this is my g1. This is my g1 of uv, the function. This is my function g2, the component functions, right? Image is xy. So components are x and y. So I have to compute the component functions in terms of the original variables u and v. So you compute, so this is g1, this is g2. I can compute the Jacobian for this. So compute the partial derivatives of this and compute the Jacobian. So let us come. Yep. Why I have taken? Maybe I made a mistake. Let me see what was the thing required. So it should be x minus y. So let me change. So this should not be 2, this should be x minus y. So that is appropriate, right? For lighting a bit. So now if you want to solve, I think now my whole calculation will go wrong probably because I made a mistake here. That's what normally happens, right? But the basic idea is from here. So let us, for the time being, let us assume that this is what x comes out, this is what y comes out to be, right? For the sake of understanding, you compute x and y in terms of u and v, right? That gives you g1 and g2. And now from this, you have to compute 2 things. One, you have to compute the Jacobian, right? And verify that is not equal to 0. And you have to also compute the domain E, which is going to be mapped onto the parallelogram. So that when you do that, so you see according to the given conditions, u equal to 1 goes to x plus y equal to 1, right? From there. And similarly, u equal to 4 goes to x plus y equal to 4. And I have to, let me probably change that to x, whatever it is. So accordingly, so this is how the boundaries you will change, compute in terms of u and v. And then you compute your integral, so that you get g of e to be equal to the domain bounded by these lines. Right? You got the boundaries, you have computed how they look like in the uv variables, the domain bounded by these boundaries in the uv plane. Right? So then you integrate. So it looks like if my calculations are probably not right, we'll see it next time again, that this says, right? So let us compute the Jacobian of this comes out to be minus 1 by 3. So by change of variable, if you compute 1 by 3 into, now is the area of a rectangle which is easy to see. Okay? So let me probably stop here. So this example I will try to work it out next time again with the correct thing.